Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 presented by Stakes here to talk about Memphis and Alabama. Blake, both teams had really good wins over the weekend. Alabama went into Houston, pulled the upset over the number one team in the country, whereas Memphis, which seems intent on playing the whole SEC before it gets into the conference portion, had a really nice win in Atlanta over Auburn this weekend. Both these teams can defend. Memphis very experienced. Alabama has got some experience, but it really new faces are a lot of what have led the charge for Nate Oates' team. This will be a fascinating matchup when these two teams hook up in Tuscaloosa on Tuesday night.
Yep, Memphis 3-0 against the SEC so far. So we've got Alabama and A&M up next. So that'll be 5 games against the league. But they've beaten Vanderbilt, they've beaten Ole Miss, and they've beaten Auburn. And they look pretty good in that Auburn game. Defensively, we said we thought that'd be a low-scoring game, but defensively, I still thought Memphis was pretty good in that one. And Kendrick Davis just kind of took over 27 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. He was tremendous. And I think that there's just a lot to like about this Memphis team right now. I know early in the season they had a couple of those close losses to St. Louis and Seton Hall, but this is a team that I think has figured out a lot of things, and they are playing some really good basketball. But of course, we can say the same about Alabama. Now beating 2 number 1 teams, both away from home, Carolina and Houston. And really, again, aside from just losing to the new number 1 in UConn, Alabama's looked really good, and I think they proved in that Houston game, winning a game without Brandon Miller being at his best tells you a lot about the depth for the Crimson Tide. And so, that's up for a pretty fantastic matchup here.
Yeah, you look at that Alabama game against Houston. Miller didn't give them much offensively. Alabama left some things on the table with foul shots, 20 of 32. It committed 15 turnovers to Houston's 10. If you know those numbers going in, you think Houston wins the game. For Alabama to do that on the road shows you this team's really good. When you can win a game like that without a lot of things going right for you, that makes a statement. And I think one of the things that is Alabama's strength is it just got so many guys who do so many things. I mean, Jaden Bradley stepped up and gave them a big game the other night. This team will go maybe 10 deep. It's long, and it is really good on both sides of the ball. I mean, last year defense was an issue for Nate Oates' team. This year, that team is really invested on that end of the floor.
Yep, Amari Burnett, a big reason for that too. I think he's been really good on that side, and that's kind of what we expected is, if you really think about it, I mean, Alabama is pretty much driven by underclassmen, outside of Mark Sears to this point. Like, I feel like that's kind of what is driving them. Because even like, a Quinterly, I don't know if Quinterly's impact is going to be what we thought it would be, just based on how everything else is kind of playing out around him.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because, again, you see defensively, there are certain guys you have to have on the floor. And I think Burnett's one of those guys. At times, I think there's a lot of guys like that. And again, that gives you the option that Nate Oates has to go to different guys. Because I mean, really, starting 5 is what? Pair of freshmen, pair of sophomores, and a junior. So they're still able to do this, and I think that makes it even more impressive. Is just that they have a lot of guys who are stepping up this early, basically in their college careers, and that's what you want. You want guys that can make an impact and really fit into what you want to do, and everyone's buying in defensively. That was the difference last year. You didn't get that, and that's been the difference to this point. I think now, you come into this game with a very fresh look at a Memphis team that, again, what Kendrick Davis is capable of. You saw him do it against Auburn, and but there's also some other guys like a DeAndre Williams and such that can do a lot of good things. And so I think that defense will really be tested here against this Memphis team that's playing with a lot of confidence.
Our channel is presented by Stakes. You can predict sports better than the crowd for a chance to win NFTs. With Stakes, players can cement their sports predictions against friends, other fans, and influencers forever. Don't let your sports genius go overlooked. Join Stakes. Have the best predictions captured in the moment. Go to playwithstakes.com/14. Use our invite code Southeastern14 for a double welcome bonus. Blake, Memphis has looked really good so far. I've seen this team in person. It really gets after you defensively. They can play zone. It can play man. Kendrick Davis, the SMU transfer, who was conference player of the year last year, has really been something for them. Gets 27 against Auburn. Andre Williams, who I think is 25 or 26, has been a big deal for them. He got 16 on Saturday. Alex Lomax, who's been there forever, their point guard, has played well. They've got some depth like Keontae Kennedy, the UTEP transfer. This is an old team. This is a team that plays defense. That's a pretty nice recipe for pulling an upset on the road.
Well, yeah, and I mean they're like I said, they're not they're pretty tested, I would say, to this point, because again, they've gone on the I mean, look, I know Vanderbilt's Vanderbilt, but they go on the road, win an SEC game to start the season. They got wins over Nebraska, Stanford, Ole Miss, like I said, Auburn. I mean, clearly Auburn's the best win of the season for Memphis. But I think just getting that win and the way they played, if you watch that Auburn game, I mean, that looked like a Memphis team that can do some damage. And I think that's where now you carry that over into a game like this. And I think what you said, their experience, it's the opposite of what we just talked about. Alabama's relying on basically a lot of underclassmen to deliver in these big games. So far, they've done it for the most part, I guess minus that UConn game, which I just thought matchup wise was a bad matchup in the first place.
Yeah. UConn's a bad
but
matchup for everybody. But
yeah, and it's just it's the physicality and stuff that they play with. But Memphis is the opposite in terms of just the experience, and like this is such an experienced team, and you've got guys who again have played some minutes together now, and have certainly found that chemistry that you wanted to see if you were Penny Hardaway to kind of get the most out of this group, and they're doing that. It's a team that they're going to attack you. It's not going to be a team that's really going to rely a lot on the 3-point shot. And so I think Alabama, knowing that's where the interior defense for Alabama and just stopping the dribble penetration, stopping some of those plays at the rim, for DeAndre Williams, that's going to be important in this game. And, that's where, again, I think when you look at how Alabama's playing defense and how they kind of willed themselves to win at Houston, it's still, they may be the lesser experienced team here, but just with the depth and such, I feel like they've got some of those guys like a Bediako, Brandon Miller, of course, they can rebound, they can protect at the rim, and that's going to be important here again against this Memphis team.
I look at places where teams can exploit the other one, and Alabama's defense is 7th in the country in effective field goal percentage, 41.2%. Houston just kind of mediocre in terms of field goal efficiency, 51.1% effective. That's 133rd in the country. When Alabama's got the ball, some things that stand out here. Alabama gets a ton of shots blocked. I don't really know how to explain that. 348th in the country and having shots blocked. Memphis is 34th in the country in terms of block percentage. Alabama, not a great shooting team, 50.3% in effective field goal percentage. Memphis's defense giving it 44.4%. That's 35th nationally. Now, where Alabama can kill you is on the offensive glass. Bama's offensive rebounding rate, 39.2%. That's 4th in the country. Memphis, 31.9%. That's 288. Each team's got a little something that it can do to the other team here that gives them problems. But it seems to me like Alabama can maybe present a few more problems than Memphis and is also playing at home.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Coleman Coliseum factor is a big part of it. If you're looking at it from an offensive rebounding standpoint, Auburn's a pretty good offensive rebounding team. They only had 11 against Memphis. And I think, again, that's where Memphis was able to kind of push them to take some shots they didn't want to take, and they didn't hit threes, and that's something that we kind of expected. For Auburn, they turned it over 15 times. That's something Alabama has not been great at, as we know, in terms of they have
turned over a lot.
They turn the ball over a bit, so it's just the nature, I think, of how they play offense sometimes. So it's not a huge surprise, but yeah. So I think there are some kind of statistical things you can look at in this game, and I just think for Alabama, it's pretty simple. Like you said, I think it's just taking care of the ball and really just getting those second chance opportunities because they've proven they can do that to this point because Alabama's going to have the size advantage here. And I think if they can just get those second chance opportunities, and let's point this out too. I mean, this is Memphis has played a lot of games away from home. I mean, they've played 10 games this season, and only 4 of them I think have been true home games.
Wow.
So, so it's a team too that I think is not fazed by the fact that they're having to go on the road. Now, 4 of those are neutral court games, I guess you could say, but still, I mean, it's a team that has played a lot away from home, and so I think there's something to that here. going into Tuscaloosa and feeling like they really, nothing seems to phase them at this point. And so I think there's something to that, but I think that goes back to the Kendrick Davis effect and just the experience effect. So yeah, Memphis is going to come in this game with feeling like they have a chance to really win it, and I think they do have a chance to win it. But when you look at the way Alabama's played to this point, you know, if you're thinking could there be a letdown after winning that game against Houston, I think this is one where because Memphis played the way they did against Auburn, I just can't see Alabama kind of putting themselves in that position because it's like, well, maybe it's a look ahead to Gonzaga. No, like Memphis is really good. And so
Yeah.
I think it's one where Alabama should come out focused and, certainly being able to try to build off of that game against Houston because look, Alabama's what a top 5 team now. And again, that's just probably me thinking at it from a national standpoint. I have no idea. I haven't looked at the polls, but yeah, I think there's a lot of areas here. Offensive rebounding, taking care of the ball. Those are going to be big aspects here for the Tide.
Okay, before we give you our picks, we got a new partner in BROTHROW, which lets you bet on all 50 states. It's not the house, so bettors have a chance of winning fairly. If you're sick of betting $11 to win 10, this is the place for you. They don't take a cut of every bet. You don't have to make deposits. There are no minimum bets or need to connect your bank account. Bettors pay each other directly. It is a hassle-free sign-up process that gets you in the action in seconds. We are pleased to be partners with BROTHROW to join our community over there, which we have just started. So get in and join it. Go to brothrow.com/SE14. That's BROTHROW. You can also see that in the banner. Get in, make your picks if you want to put a little bit of money on this one. Again, all you lose is what you pay the other guy, and you don't have to pay any juice on this. It's a great platform. We appreciate them being partners with us. Blake, I think Alabama wins the game straight up. I just can't pick against them right now. And we don't have a line on this. Ken Palm's got it at 7. I think Bart Torvik's got it closer to 4.5. Maybe this isn't a game Alabama wins by single digits, maybe even a bucket or two. What do you think?
Yeah, I know Alabama fans don't want to hear me say this, but I'm going to pick Alabama to win. We always joke about that. Every time I do, they lose, and vice versa. Memphis is really hard to pick against right now because I think they're playing with as much confidence as anybody.
Yeah.
And I think just watching Kendrick Davis play, I think he's good enough to will them to a victory here. But I think the difference is probably the rebounding. I think that's where Alabama probably gets some second chance looks here, and that gives them a chance to really capitalize on what will be some good defense, I think, from Memphis. Then will force them to take some bad shots at times, again, force some of those turnovers. But I don't know. Memphis has got a swagger right now that it is hard to pick against them because I think there's something to this team. But look, Alabama has, as we said, just went on the road and beat the number 1 team in the country, showed, just a resiliency there, being down 15. I think that the Tide are set up in a good spot to bounce back here and, get another big win in what could be a series of big wins here. As we said, they've beaten Houston. They got Memphis now. They'll play Gonzaga on Saturday. But I just think that, this should be a really fun game, just given what we've seen from both sides here. But I think maybe that slight rebounding edge for Alabama could be the difference. And again, I think Alabama defensively can also do some things to kind of challenge this Memphis offense a little bit too.
Well, I'll tell you what I think about Alabama, too. And I know it doesn't always show up in the stats and the field goal percentage number you'd like to see get better, but I just feel like Alabama's got more scoring options. It won the game the other night without Miller hitting a field goal. Mark Sears can give you 20 any night. Noah Clowney's been really good. Bradley stepped up. Namari Burnett is not really a guy you think of as an offensive threat as much as you think of him as a defender, but he's averaging 8 a game. Noah Gurley's played well at times. Javon Quinterly's only averaging 6 points a game for this team, and some of that is coming off that injury and all that, but he can give you 3 times that on a given night. I just feel like I think the difference to me is Alabama appears to have more scoring options in a game where both teams defend their socks off.
Yeah, I mean, if Alabama slows down Kendrick Davis, they're going to be in good shape because yes, obviously DeAndre Williams can score, but I think beyond that, Lomax can score, Kennedy can score, but I think your top level scoring is going to come from Davis and from Williams, and I think it's just if they were to slow down one or both of those guys, they're going to be in a really good spot. And I think, like you said, the difference with Alabama is I feel like Alabama's got 7 guys that can go off for 20 points at any time.
Yeah.
And that's it may sound like an exaggeration, but I really don't think it is. Just given what we've seen from them so far. So yeah, I think that's one of the things too that could come into play here. But like I said, I don't discount Memphis here because I was really impressed and just having seen them a little bit this season in other games, non-SEC games,
Yeah.
which has not been a lot because, like we said, they played a lot of SEC teams. But whether it's the Auburn game, whether it's some of these other games they played, I mean, they had a close call there against Seton Hall and St. Louis. I mean, they could just as easily right now be unbeaten. So I wouldn't discount Memphis here, and I don't think you're going to see them kind of back down from this challenge.
He is Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee of Southeastern 14. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our content. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.